Good morning, everybody. My name is Deborah Byrne from Deborah Byrne Psychology Services, known across social media as DBpsychology. So this morning I'm going to talk about this week's blog, which is all about dependent personality disorder. This is a blog. I like to do these, as I've said before, because people need information that maybe, you've been diagnosed or somebody has just been diagnosed, or in general for the general public, that they understand different conditions, and therefore when you understand something, it's empowering. It empowers you, the information then also takes the fear out of something, and that is very, very important. We have to start taking the fear out of different conditions. And in order to do that, we have to understand them and not be just going on what somebody else has decided to write in the media or something else. So in saying that, dependent personality disorder is an anxiety-based disorder. It is classed under the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, big mouthful, but it's just a guideline that is used by psychiatrists, psychologists to diagnose somebody with different conditions, with different mental disorders, things like that. And everything is compiled and put in there, and basically then it's used, as I said, to diagnose people. And with dependent personality disorder, it is classed as a personality disorder. But personality disorders, as I've said before, are classed into different groups, and this one is contained within the group with OCD and avoidant personality disorder, which I've talked about before. The symptoms, as I said, can be quite devastating for somebody with a dependent personality disorder. They're very debilitating, and they affect every aspect of this person's life. They are very much reliant on another human being for everything. Their wants, their needs, their comforts, their reassurance, support, advice, down to the fact that they will want the other person to make all the decisions with regards to their life. So they'll want them to decide where they work. They'll want to decide what hobbies they can have. They'll want them to decide who their friends are. Everything. This other person has to tell them what to do. What clothes to wear. Everything is so reliant on another human being. And as you can imagine, that then leaves that person open to being abused. So if you have somebody who likes to control others, and I'm talking about domestic violence situations here, somebody with a dependent personality disorder would be very open to being abused in that way. They would be they're very vulnerable people. Now, the causes are unknown, as we always say, because, as I said before, we're still mapping out the mind, still mapping out the brain. But we do know that it could be from a number of different factors can feed into it. So something like a family history of anxiety disorders, domestic violence or abuse, sexual abuse in the family. You could have a very authoritarian parent. So that would be somebody that's, very extremely strict to you and I. And then, of course, neglect, something like that. Any sort of history like that will obviously feed into developing something like this sort of personality disorder. These people are, as I said, very vulnerable, and they can't make up their own mind as to about anything. So you'd see this starting probably in the early teens, but nobody would be diagnosed before they're 18. Very rarely, it would be very, very rare that somebody would be diagnosed before they're 18. But you could see you'll probably see some of the traits from very early on, probably firmly established in the early teens. it really would depend on the child. It really would depend on what way they're, you know, how they are, how, you know, what they're into, what their capabilities are. Are they very outgoing? Are they very, you know, it really can, you can see some of the, what I'm trying to say is you can really see some of the traits maybe even earlier than 13 starting to establish, but you'd have to know what you're looking at. So probably a very anxious child, very, very fearful child, afraid of the dark and things like that, but it would be to the extreme, so don't go panicking, please, if you're around. No, in terms of diagnosis and treatment, I'm not going to go into those. They're in the blog. It's what I want to talk about really is the complications. So if somebody is left undiagnosed and untreated, of course things are going to get worse. So what you can have then is, as I've talked before, you could have comorbidity, you could have other personality disorders developing, like OCD or avoidant personality disorder developing, or other anxiety-based disorders like general anxiety, social anxiety, very much so, developing, depression, and substance abuse. That would be used then, of course, as a coping mechanism, because it's very hard to live with somebody like this, and perhaps they have been abused, perhaps they've been in a domestic violence situation, and then they've gotten themselves out. As a result of that, they are likely to collapse themselves as a result of being left or of them having to leave a situation. As I said, they need that structure. They're looking for, really, for you to be their comfort blanket, their you know, somewhere that they can fall. You're almost like wrapping them in cotton wool is what they're looking for. So when that structure is taken away, they're going to collapse. They're obviously going to collapse. So they will use substance. They will probably turn to a substance, to like alcohol or drugs, or some other form of like eating disorder or something like that, to comfort themselves, to compensate for their feelings of inadequacy, because they will put themselves down a lot. They will refer to themselves as stupid. You know, they constantly belittle themselves, so they very low self-esteem. So, you know, you have to understand that they will look to other sources for this comfort if they're not getting somebody else. So in terms of living with somebody, of course, then, and trying to support somebody with a dependent personality disorder, it is quite exhausting. I have to be very honest with you. It would be quite exhausting, very stressful. And my main points, and I talk a bit more in the blog, of course, but my main points would be that, you know, encouraging them to go to the GP, encouraging them to get help, and encouraging them to get a diagnosis so they can get treatment would be important. But that doesn't stop you going and getting help. You need the help just as much as they do, unfortunately. You need support. You need to be able to talk about your own feelings and what you're going, and about what you're going through. So you are going as their carer, and that is basically what you are. You would need that support and help, and you need to learn to set boundaries with them, and that can be quite tricky with somebody like this. So there are things you can do for yourself that perhaps will force the situation. If you go and get help, sometimes we find that when one partner or a parent goes and gets help, that the other party who is in fact ill will then end up going and getting help too, because the first person has gone and gotten help. So, you know, think about that if you are in such a relationship, if you're in any relationship with somebody with a mental health condition, or a disability or anything else like that, you too need help. It can't always be about the other person. You will burn out very quickly, absolutely burn out very quickly. and then you're no good to anybody. So, and you're certainly no good to yourself. So you have to think of self-care, and you have to think of getting the counselling. So that's that this morning. A very quick, brief blog. As I said, it's an informative blog for people that maybe have been just diagnosed, or somebody who's living with somebody like that, or you suspect you're living with somebody with a dependent personality disorder. Or again, to break down the barriers. That's what I try to do, break down the barriers by giving people information. So as always, thank you. You can find the blog on www.deborahbyrnepsychologyservices.com. And thank you as always to Deirdre and Colette and Kim and Jennifer for tuning in. And everybody else who will watch on replay, thank you so much for doing that. And I will talk to you all next week. And have a lovely weekend. Thank you.